Welcome everyone back to weekly weather updates, and in today's video we're going to have the latest from the live radar, run for the latest UKV, have a look at the precipitation and the temperature over the next 5 days. This upcoming working week we're going to see a continuation of the sunny, dry and pretty stunning conditions that we have seen throughout the first week or so of April and for the final couple of weeks of March as well. We are seeing a big continuation of this high pressure block, but the end is now in sight. We'll still see high teens this week, lots of sunshine, but come next weekend, especially into the following week as well, we are likely to see quite a significant breakdown with low pressure coming back in off the Atlantic. It doesn't look like it's going to be a short period of low pressure. It does look like it's going to be hanging around as this block that we've got at the moment isn't dissipating away. It's just moving, which could mean the low pressure that does come back in off the Atlantic could be very slow moving and could kind of stick around the UK and northern and western Europe in general. So yeah, going from a very dry period to potentially quite unsettled during the middle of the month, and we'll see that from the longer range charts, but they're all kind of in agreement around the 13th or 14th of April. That is the date where the majority of runs do bring that low pressure back in and start to see that rain. But even the days prior to that could start to see a bit of cloud, bit of rain in the north and west. So as I said, it's next weekend into the following week. That's when we're going to see this breakdown. So do cherish the next 5, 6, 7 days of still warm and sunny conditions. Now, if you start on the live radar, you can see at the moment it is dry, it is sunny. I feel like I've said that for the past week or two. No real changes in that regards. As I said, it's been a very nice, pleasant day once again today, but there has been a bit more of an easterly flow, and that's been, especially across eastern areas, it has been a little bit chilly. This easterly flow does continue to drag in some cooler air, especially at the surface as a result of the colder sea surface temperatures. See, west is best, especially across parts Western Republic of Ireland and England and Wales, and that's going to be the theme for this week as well. You can see across Eastern Europe though, it is very cold. You can see we've got this warm area across Western Europe, this big cold plunge across much of Eastern Europe, and then if you go into the far east, even it's starting to get towards Asia, you can see it's warm again, it's mild, and that's because this is a northerly flow, this big plunging area of very cold air heading straight southwards. You can see we are very close to being mixed in with this, but fortunately we are not, and we are staying in the mild air. For much of Eastern Europe, it is bitterly cold, lots of heavy snow. Not for us though. As we did say a couple of weeks ago, that was a risk. There was the potential to see patterns like that. But fortunately, we have been on the warmer side of this block, and we have not seen anything too cold, bits of frost, and that will continue in a few places this week, but nothing really that cold. Now, to have a look at the latest UKV now, you can see over the course of the coming days, stunning conditions. They don't look like they're going anywhere. Through Monday, lots of sunshine, hardly a cloud in the sky, and that's the same into Tuesday as well. A bit of cloud perhaps across the far east, but generally speaking, nothing too bad. And into Wednesday, perhaps a little bit more cloud for the eastern half. You can see it does burn back towards the coast during the afternoon. So we'll have to wait and see exactly how much cloud lingers, but hopefully not too much. And then again into Thursday, a bit of cloud around, especially during the morning, but hopefully once again burns back towards the coast. It's all due to that easterly flow, bringing a bit of moisture in, seeing a bit of fog and lower clouds. You could wake up in the morning, it looks a bit cloudy, doesn't look particularly great, and you're thinking, oh, we're losing the sunshine today, but it could burn back very, very quickly through the mid to late morning. So do watch out for that. It might be pretty miserable, especially in the east in some of the mornings, and cold, but by the afternoon it will be stunning and warm, and that's going to continue all the way to the end of the week. And even by Friday though, thicker cloud, bits and bobs of rain starting to arrive in anticipation of that breakdown into next weekend. Now, do look at the max temperatures. You see today it was another stunning day. Not quite as warm it has been over the past week, but still kind of 14 to 18 degrees. So still very, very pleasant. Still a bit chilly though across those eastern coasts. Overnight tonight, temperatures down towards freezing for quite a few. It is pretty cold, but generally speaking, nothing too out of the ordinary. Early April frost under high pressure isn't too unusual, but again, it means if you are up early, it will still feel pretty chilly out there. Into Monday afternoon, another warm day. Again, temperatures not spectacular, 14 to 18 degrees, but again, it's that sunshine that really makes the difference. Without that sunshine, 14, 15 degrees wouldn't feel anything too spectacular, but it's because we've got that sunshine, it does feel much, much warmer than it actually is. Of course, though, we have to caveat eastern areas, eastern coasts, feeling a bit colder as a result of the easterly flow. If we progress into Tuesday, again, another frost into the morning, and by the afternoon, once again, temperatures up towards that 14 to 18 degree mark, and it's a rinse and repeat into Wednesday. Not quite as cold in the morning, but once again, temperatures up towards the mid to high teens. It does look like for Northern Ireland and the Republic of Ireland, further westward you go towards the centre of the high, better conditions, none of that easterly flow, and not expecting much in the way of wind or cloud. So that means that those temperatures will continue to be a few degrees higher than further eastward. So best is in the west over the course of this next week. It's quite unusual to normally be saying that, but in this sort of scenario, it is those westerly areas. And then finally into Thursday and Friday, you can see still Thursday looking pretty pleasant, even up towards 18 or 19 degrees in a few spots. But I would expect by the time we get into next weekend, those temperatures to start to drop as those northwesterly winds start to arrive. Now, if you look at the latest GFS, you can see the high pressure is in control at the moment. I'm not expecting any real movement of that for the next 4 or 5 days, as I said. The high pressure, though, starts to flatten by the end of the week. So still expecting Friday and even Saturday to still be relatively dry, but it's through Saturday evening into Sunday. Look at that, the high pressure moves away into Europe and we start to see that northwesterly flow. It is a pretty slow breakdown. No low pressure systems flooding in off the Atlantic very quickly. It is a slow breakdown, but that means we could see some slow moving weather fronts, some gradual increases in clouds. So it's not a sudden overnight, we've lost it. It will be over the course of a couple of days, next weekend especially. But it's around that 13th, 14th where we start to see the low pressure really arriving, and that's when we could start to see the heavier rain starting to return. You can see here a bit of a battle in the longer range between high pressure, low pressure. As I said, the high pressure isn't going away. It's not completely disintegrating. It's just moving around, not blocked over the top of us. And you can see a bit of a return there towards 384 hours, but it returns with a north or northeasterly wind. So that would bring a return to cold conditions, frosty conditions. Look at that, quite a few blues around indicating some quite cold Arctic air trying to nudge in. So once again, we'll have to wait and see what that does prevail. But at the moment, it definitely looks like a breakdown's coming and a little bit more up and down, unsettled conditions into the second half of the month. Now, if you compare to the GM, again, very similar, high pressure in control. High pressure eventually breaking down into next weekend, and then it gets replaced by quite a big area of low pressure. Doesn't look like a return of high pressure is coming here at all. High pressure actually moves towards Greenland, and that would be a real issue, as that could cut off this low sat over the top of us and really prevent it moving anywhere. If we do look at the upper level winds, you can see they're going all the way up to Greenland, dipping southwards, and then heading northwards back again into Scandinavia. And this little dip over the UK, that's where we could see a trough sitting, and that's exactly what we see here from the GEM. And that trough could hang around for a long period of time. It's this green circle, and unfortunately it would produce lots of rain, and you can see that here, lots of bands of rain, potentially even some thunderstorms if we do get some warmer, more humid air in from the near continents. So that would not be ideal either. Not the same as the GFS, but similar in terms of bringing more unsettled, rainy conditions there into the middle of the month. Now finally, if we compare to the latest ECMWF, this run is just coming out. Again, high pressure slowly dissipating away. Eventually low pressure replaces it, and pretty similar to the GM in fact, high pressure up towards Greenland and the low becoming a bit cut off. Now it's not quite as deep and as large as the GM, but it's a very similar pattern. Cut off low starting to occur, and yeah, that could be very, very unsettled, thundery as well. But at the same time, we could feed some very warm air in from the east. So it could actually turn a bit warmer, a bit more humid, but there would be rain, there would be cloud, there would be thunderstorms. As you can see, cold air filtering down the western side of the low, very warm air filtering in from the eastern side. That collision over the top of us yeah, wouldn't end in probably particularly great condition. Lots of rain would be expected in that sort of scenario. We can see that all coming together here on the latest ensembles, up and down over the next 5 or 6 days with those upper air temperatures, but generally above average. Nothing too spectacular, and that's why it's only kind of mid to high teens, but generally still fairly warm. Precipitation is minimal, but then look at that, 13th, 14th picks up very quickly and pretty dominant there as we do progress towards the second half of the month. A lot more unsettled conditions there around sort of the 16th, 17th, 18th. Lots of up and down in the temperatures as well. Again, symbolic of more of a westerly flow, potentially cooler air digging in with those low pressure systems as well. You can see it's more pronounced here on the sea level pressure. High pressure out to Friday, Saturday, and then we see a big dip. And that's that low pressure system arriving from the northwest around that 13th, 14th, 15th point. And yeah, does look like it could be pretty abysmal indeed. And finally, if we compare to the latest ECMWF, pretty strong agreement here. Not as much in terms of cooler upper air temperatures from the ensemble members here into the longer term. So perhaps signs that we could be on the warmer side of that low, that cut-off low that could develop, but you still see lots of precipitation. So generally speaking, we are going to see an increase in those unsettled conditions. So perhaps we could remain on the warmer side of the low pressure system. And you can see that here, those upper air temperatures equating to pretty warm surface temperatures, actually as good as they are now, maybe even improving there into the second half of April. Again, it's expected, we are progressing towards summer, but it just wouldn't be a dry and sunny warmth like we have at the moment. It will still be warm, perhaps a bit more humid, but it will be with rain, it will be with cloud, potentially even some thunderstorms as well. So a much, much different second half of the month is coming. So do make sure you cherish the next 5 or 6 days of dry and warm, and most importantly, sunny conditions before we do start to see the big change. We will see more sunny, warm and dry weather in the coming months, but can't really guarantee we'll see anything as good as it's been the last sort of 2 or 3 weeks. Getting these long stretches is very, very difficult. And the best thing I think about this warm and dry spell is it's not been particularly oppressive. It's been those high teens, it's been warm in the sunshine, but we've had a bit of a breeze, we've had some cool mornings, so you're not getting really hot and sweaty out there like you can do in some of the very dry and warm July periods. So I found it really, really pleasant. I'm going to miss it going away, but it was never going to last forever. And we are seeing that change into next weekend. So anyway, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new. And I'll see you again for another video soon.